Like it's once you strip away all of what people have a perception of who you are and you get back to the human connection that we all go
Mm-hmm.
through it,
Mm-hmm.
although a lot of us don't go through it publicly. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have people like yourself who have now taken the leap to go through it publicly. It
Mm-hmm.
allows for people to identify that it's okay to not be okay and that we are
Yes.
all going through it at different points in our lives and there's going to be challenging moments. But if we
Mm-hmm.
can lend our knowledge through it, and I think what I've heard from all that you said was it was finally being able to sit still and to feel what you were feeling. No matter how fearful it felt, you
Yes.
let yourself feel it.
Yes.
In those even darkest of moments, is there something that you felt like you reverted back to? I mean, was there a book? Was it going to yoga? Was there a toolbox that you had of different things that would serve you in those moments?
Yes. Yoga, absolutely. Absolutely yoga, without a doubt. Various forms of meditation, but I think sometimes when people hear that, they feel like, oh, you know, meditation is not so but meditation and also um and yes, there were several books I read. Pema Chodron has a book called When Things Fall Apart that, I mean, I have that book right on my shelf right over here. And along the way there's another book, William Styron's Darkness Visible, or Visible Darkness, I want to say, one or the other, that talks a lot about depression and how to get out of darkness. And I think that what all of these tools do is, again, they allowed me to feel that I wasn't alone, because it feels
Yeah.
very isolating when we're going through any kind of real deep challenge. It really comes down to this place of, oh, I am in this alone.
Yeah.
No one else has gone through what I'm going
Yeah.
through. No one knows how this feels. I will never get over it. Other people get over it, but I will never get over it. And that's just how it feels. That isn't how it is. That's just how it feels. And again, this idea that we have to feel it in order to realize, oh, feelings are feelings. They are not facts of life. They are feelings. And it's not to deny them or ignore them. It's just important that we understand that's what they are. I look at my daughter who just turned 9. I mean, talk about big feelings, big feels about everything. I mean, I asked her to pick up her socks off the floor the other day, and she laid down and just said, I am not a magician. And I went, I'm just asking you to clean up your socks. So having big feelings, it's not that we are supposed to ignore them. Like, we have them,
Yeah.
acknowledge them,
Yeah.
but then no, picking up your sock, like, not wanting to pick up your socks is okay. And then you pick them up,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world, but
Do you feel like
feels
there
like
was
it.
sort of an aha moment that helped you understand that recovery from loss was actually going to be a lifelong process?
That's such a good question. I think partly when I remember having the moment, um, and it's in the book too, where I went, oh, I really have to sit with this. Like, I have to sit with this pain and this challenge. And that was definitely one of those moments. And I was going to say, what was the other? That's when I realized, it isn't a finite thing. It isn't like, oh, okay, now I'm over it. And that acknowledgement of kind of incorporating it, that was the other thing I realized in around that time. I can incorporate this grief into my life,
Right.
meaning not that I'm going to be grief stricken forever, but
Right.
that life still continues, and I can incorporate what I am feeling into my day-to-day life. So I don't have to hide it. I think often people, who are around us when we're going through any kind of challenge like that, they feel as though, oh, let's just cheer them up, or don't bring it up. because you don't want to make her think about it. And the reality is you're thinking about it all the time. And
Yeah.
the way to feel less lonely is when someone acknowledges or reflects back what we're feeling. And that's the greatest gift, I think, that we can give people who are going through grief in particular.
Don't be fearful to ask questions that you might
Yes.
not know the answers to.
Yes.
And in return of helping another person.
Yes.
We try and beat around the bush a lot. I have friends who've gone through loss during this period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have been that person for them to try and ask the hard questions so we can get through it together, and they know that they're not alone, and that it's
Yes.
not about having to tap into what the next party is or what the next thing is in life.
Yes.
That can wait.
Yes.
This needs to be felt, and you can feel it with somebody else in the process if you allow it, and if you don't, that's perfectly fine too.
Right.
But I've never been through that, so that's why I ask these questions as well, because as somebody who's an outsider and trying to just help,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the right answers either. And I want to be
Mm-hmm.
able to help somebody else who's going through it. So it's wonderful to hear that maybe that's what you needed, and that maybe that's where my head was going during this period of time
Mm-hmm.
with a friend as well. Um, I want to tap into a little bit on holding on to a perception of what life coulda, shoulda, woulda been, because I think
Mm.
sometimes that can obviously limit us from the acceptance we need to let go of the resistance to what the world has to offer us.
Yes.
And so, how important do you think it is to really allow yourself to find freedom in changing one's view on what life is about and where we're headed?
Oh my gosh. Did you ask how important is it?
Yeah,
It's
well,
probably the most important thing. It's of
yeah.
the utmost.
Or how did you learn, how did you learn to get to that place? Because I know that's something you also speak about so
Yeah.
fearlessly.
Well, because I think through my own experience of realizing you can't change the past, and you can't change, especially as, as an actress and a creative person acting in particular. And ask any producer, any studio person, anyone who hires people, they will tell
Mhm.
you there are a multitude of reasons why people get hired. 98% of the time, it isn't, you didn't not get the job because you didn't do a good job. There
Yep.
are all these things. You look like somebody's sister. You're too short for the leading actor. This part, like, there are just all these things that have nothing to do with your ability. So you can't take these things personally, number one. And half the time when something doesn't work out, it's because you're being saved from something that you weren't meant for that job. You were meant to get something else, or you were meant to have this time. If I for example, I felt at the time when all these things were happening, if I could just get another series, everything will be fine in my
Mhm.
life. And I realized, had that happened, I never would have properly grieved my dad. I never would have properly grieved my relationship. I would not have reevaluated my whole life.
Mhm.
And I utilized that time, because I was forced to do all of those things. And my life wouldn't look the way that it looks today had I not gone through those things. And that is a huge gift. I certainly wouldn't have written this book.
Mhm.
I so I want to encourage people to really trust the process of life,